Well, Sister Burkina, here we are. Welcome everybody to the Rugby Scoop Pod. What a great weekend of footy we've had. We have the old foes meeting in the final. Rugby Championship rematch, Qatar Airways rematch. It's the Springboks versus the All Blacks. Good to see a few members back this Sunday. This is a live recording. Of course, I'm not by myself. I'm joined by the brilliant crew. Vuyo, Enda, Hugh, Jade. Welcome, gentlemen. It's another episode. Finally, after 8, 9 weeks of podcasts, of rugby space, we hear the Springboks, the All Blacks. Welcome, Enda. How are you?
Good, mate, good. Still not really over the Irish results last week, but I'm here anyway.
I can imagine, mate. Vuyo, how's it going that side? Sober?
Not quite sober, mate, but very good afternoon to everyone. But since we last spoke, the Boks have won 2 times. They were supposed to be home by now, so at least I'm good, feeling good there, bro.
Yeah. They get to spend another week in France. Hugh, how are you doing? Stats, looking at all the numbers through the timeline. How's it going that side?
Yeah, I'm currently watching my Scarlets team get absolutely smashed by the Bulls up at altitude. So yeah, I might be a little bit grumpy during this one, but I'll do my best to give all the normal statistical analysis that I can.
No, fair enough. I mean, we've got the Gallagher Premiership back. Sorry, Vuyo, what? Say that again.
I'll say nothing new to Hugh. Nothing new. He's always stressing. It's either Wales or it's Scarlet. Everything.
It's been a tough 2 months for Hugh, unfortunately. Gentlemen, we're not going to waste any time. We're going to jump straight into it. We had first semi-final on Friday, All Blacks against Argentina. Obviously, a lot of pundits, a lot of social media experts don't view this semi-final as a serious semi-final, or the game did not live up to most people's expectations. I'm assuming those who don't support the All Blacks will have a different opinion regarding this particular game. And obviously you're still hurting from last week, but this Friday, All Blacks New Zealand, All Blacks against Argentina, your thoughts?
What summed up this game for me was the All Blacks choosing to end the game with 14 players on the pitch. That summed up perfectly for me. I thought that was a testament to kind of how good they were and how poor Argentina was. I don't want to be overly negative, but let's face it. It seems like the French public have lost interest. The stadium wasn't completely full. I didn't think the atmosphere was that great. And yeah, for me, this game just reiterated the farce that was the draw. There's no way for me in hell that Argentina or England should have been anywhere near World Cup semi-final. Yeah. Is this a bit of last week coming through? Maybe, but I just simply I don't think they're simply 2 of the best sides in the world. But having said that, they were there. They put in a performance, Argentina, and it was poor. It really was. They missed 51 tackles. Cheika can go on all he wants about the ref and how poor he was, but they missed 51 tackles. Their handling was poor. They made poor decisions, and so many unforced errors, and that cost them. And then, the All Blacks, they executed their game plan really well. They had some absolutely standout players like Will Jordan and Talea, Shannon Frizzell again. I thought they were excellent, the All Blacks. But for me, I was it was one of those games where you're on Twitter for most of the time and your head is buried in your phone because you know what's going one way. And yeah, just for me, I was really excited about this World Cup. But these semi-finals for me have been such a letdown because they're uncompetitive. I don't care if the games are close. I don't care if there's a massive kicking battle, but I want the best teams in the world playing in World Cup semi-finals. And for me, Argentina are not one of the best teams in the world. They're far off.
Argentina not the best in the world. Jade, as an All Black supporter, happy or probably still buzzing, I assume. How are things going your side? Radio silence. I think Jade has some technical difficulties. Vuyo will jump straight into you for this one. Your thoughts on Friday's semi-final?
Yeah, I thought it was. I thought it was one of those. As Anders has said, I mean, it was a useless semi-final. Both teams came out. They were trying to keep the ball. They were trying to. Obviously, they must have spotted some weaknesses on defense on both sides because both teams just wanted to run from everywhere. I was pretty disappointed with New Zealand's exits. I thought that their exits went clinical. And obviously, if you're going to play a team like South Africa in the final, they will have to step up that department. Looking at their top players, I think all their top players stood up. Well, Jordan stood up. Richie Moanga stood up. Tele is always obviously in and about everything. You got Corey Taylor, I thought was obviously good as well. The Barrett, Scott Barrett was. I thought Scott Barrett was efficient on the day. So I think for me, it's just a matter of was this a good practice for New Zealand going into the final with South Africa? I don't know, but if you look at South Africa, they actually, this is probably one of the first games in this World Cup that they've actually been pushed to the wire. Although it wasn't a great game, but I think it was just in terms of mentality. I think South Africa will probably be the positive. But yeah, we'll talk about that later anyway. But yeah, New Zealand obviously they just obviously turned it on, and Argentina played their best. I believe Argentina played their best game of the tournament game, although they lost by a big score. I still believe they played their best game because they've been very average throughout the whole tournament.
Yeah, fair enough. Hugh?
Yeah, I didn't get to watch much of this one live because I was out with family and things, but I wasn't in any doubt of how the game was going to go. I think it shows one of the nuances of tournament World Cup format rugby that I, as a Wales fan, have experienced a lot, and perhaps some others haven't, is that New Zealand have played one hard game on round one, and then they had no serious challenge again until the quarter final, and now they have played a semi-final that wasn't a challenge either. I think we're really going to see that have an impact in the final. I don't want to get too far ahead of the conversation, but the schedule and the level of opposition you face and the order in which you face them has a huge impact on your performance in the big games. And that's why I think Ireland having to have played South Africa and then Scotland, even though the Scotland game wasn't much of a contest, took an edge off them compared to the All Blacks playing against, what was it, Namibia, Italy and Uruguay with a break in it. So, yeah, like I say, I didn't watch much of it, but I'm not surprised at all by the result. It's exactly what we all expected. It's pretty much what had happened in the Rugby Championship a few months previous. So, yeah, no shocks.
No shocks at all. Jade, I see you are back with the big bang.
Yeah, I'm back. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Just a problem with my mic. Yeah, you can only beat who's put out in front of you. You can't blame New Zealand for playing Argentina in the semi-final. If you want to blame somebody for the semi-final draw, it's the IRB for having a little bit, getting overexcited and getting the pool stages drawn so early. So for me, it was a good performance from the All Blacks. Obviously, the scoreline was there, but it wasn't a complete performance. There's still a few concerning aspects I'll get into later where, for me, the Boks will have the edge over them. especially like the exit play from kickoffs was still very shaky during the game. The defense improved, but I mean the exit play was they weren't kicking the ball out. You can't do that against the box. You got to make sure that you take them to the set piece. Don't allow the likes of Aransa and Willems or Wally and Kobe, chances to get on with the game and counter attack. So it wasn't a complete performance, but the winners there, they're in the final. They do have an extra day compared to the Box, who will be a little bit better than Bruce. But then again, you can look at it and say that, well, the Box's tails are up after yesterday. So, yeah, let's roll on to this finals week.
Sticking with you, Jade, still regarding obviously game tactics, game management within the All Blacks or Argentina. I mean, Michael Cheika did say, I mean, they struggled to compete in certain areas within that particular game. Obviously, there were murmurs or comments regarding officiating, but I mean, that's neither here or there. Regarding the performance from the Argentine side, I think also regarding also what viewers said as well, that Argentina actually probably played a better game on Friday, or in terms of how they managed the game, in terms of how they went through their processes within that particular game, but they could not get over the line. That's the unfortunate part because the All Blacks defense was quite there. But game tactics from what you saw on Friday, what do you take out from the game tactics from Argentina and from the New Zealand side?
To be honest with you guys, Argentina for me went backwards this year compared to where they were last year. Last year they beat England in Twickenham, they beat New Zealand in Christchurch. They didn't kick on the season. The first game they started, they struggled against, or they got a hiding against New Zealand at home. Then they beat Australia. Then they came and had two scrappy games against the Box, which the Box won. And they went into the World Cup a little bit, undercooked, only playing against, I think they played against Spain only in the warm-ups, and then they got it, lost against England, and England had 14 men in the first game, and then they were scrappy right through. Even the game against Wales, that performance from, in the second half, they took the game against away from Wales. You can't really say that Argentina really, set up and set like the World Cup or the rugby world during this World Cup. For me, Checker, I would complain about tactics and refereeing decision if my team lost by 7 or maybe 12 points. But look at the score margin. The score margin was big on the day. I don't think Mr. Checker, as much as I like him, can go back and state that, the refereeing decisions, and he wasn't happy with Angus Gardner, especially the way Gardner spoke to Montoya and the way he spoke to Kane. There was a difference in the two, but you can't compare when the score is that much. I mean, we even still in the English this morning, just wipe your tears away, stop complaining about Ben O'Keefe. I have a problem with Argentina, their defense. I don't think in an international game at the moment, I think the Australian Rugby League coaches, I think they're a little bit outdated, especially the defense coaches. I don't think it works anymore in rugby. I think that's a little bit 5 or 6 years back. I think for now, all the good defensive coaches are coming, besides Sean Edwards, he does come from a league background as well. But if you're looking at the Australia team and the Argentinian team, they conceded a lot of tries this season, and are the defense coaches really the best coaches for that job, The other thing in terms of the All Blacks, we have to give credit to Scott McLeod. I've slashed him, numerous occasions, stating that how can an All Black team concede 2 or more tries a game? It's inexcusable. But I think in this World Cup, in the first 20 minutes, they haven't conceded a try. Their defense has improved. They're no longer, just very passive and static in defense, using the touchline as the other defender. They come off their line a little bit. Their line speed was good. Mark Talia, Rico came off their line well. So, as of to Scott McLeod, I mean, that was a big change I could see in New Zealand before the World Cup and going into this World Cup. What is their defense? Saturday is a different ball game. It's a brand new ball game. It's a tough call. We don't know how it will go, but yeah. Props up to New Zealand. They're on a high going into the final. But Michael Cheika, as much as I love you, mate, I think less of Eddie Jones tactics now. And, you made the semi-final, go out for your bronze medal. But I don't think you can blame Angus Gardner on this one.
You cannot blame the referees. Vuyo, your technical analysis regarding that first semi-final?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I think both teams were looking at keeping the ball a lot more in hand. Like I said, they probably felt both teams have they saw weaknesses on defense, which they can bridge. But obviously, New Zealand suffered in the first couple of minutes. They were under the pump from Argentina, but ended up obviously surviving that onslaught. So if I look at every time New Zealand kicked off, they were very poor on the exits, as Jade has also mentioned. I think they were very poor on the exits, and obviously we always talk about once a team scores, the first most important thing is your exit, and it's to get out of your sort of like your pressure zones. So New Zealand didn't do that quite well yesterday. On Friday. I think they lacked there, so they'll probably have to focus on that a little bit more. Yes, and obviously the rest is just like you guys have been saying. Look, if you want to win rugby games, you have to stay on top of the small moments. And Argentina made a lot of errors, crucial errors in crucial places. I think, yes, blaming the ref is the easiest option for any professional to do, but you also have to look at yourself and swallow your pride and say, look, we were just poor on the day. And I think that's what Argentina needs to do.
Yeah, fair enough. Hugh Chaker speaks about the World Cup not being over after Friday night's defeat. He said, "Yeah, we're here to get a medal. So next week we coming after. Okay, now we know who they're playing, which is England. So they still determined to go for third spot. I mean, your approach or your analysis from looking at Argentina throughout this World Cup. I mean, what have you seen? Are you impressed from what Jade said as well? Last year they were pretty good. This season they don't look as good or as sharp as they were previously.
No, I agree. They don't look as good. Wales have been in a couple of third place playoffs, and it's a very hard game to get motivated for. I think, did Argentina win it in 2015? I want to say. I agree with what everybody said. They're not the team they were a year ago. And I think, God, who after the round one game on Sunday night between Argentina and England would have said, God, I hope we see these two play each other again? Probably no one. So God knows what that game is going to be like. I think Argentina have got better than they were in that first game, but I don't know. It's difficult to get excited about it, to be very honest.
Fair enough. And before we jump onto the Springboks, your thoughts on Argentina or the All Blacks actually within this particular World Cup month, 8 weeks or so? What are your thoughts, or what have you seen that has stand out for you besides obviously the result that was on Friday?
Yeah, I have to agree with the panel. I think Argentina have definitely gone backwards. They haven't improved for me. This is obviously partly to do with the fact that their players are playing at different clubs across the world. That's going to have an impact. So hopefully, that issue will be resolved if the Jaguars come back. But I think that's certainly an issue for them, having players playing everywhere. Especially when you look at teams like Ireland and the All Blacks, where their players, they have full control over their players and how many minutes they do, and how much rest they get and all that. And to be honest, I like that what Checker came out with after the game, saying that he's up for this playoff, and he pointed out that a lot of teams didn't get 7 games. So I like that level of enthusiasm for a playoff game. But after last night's performance by England, I think England will do it. Unfortunately, from a neutral's perspective, it'll probably be a low scoring game. But I'm not sure where Argentina go from here. I think they need to hold on to Checker. I think he's an excellent coach. We all know that. And look, they certainly improved from that first game where they were so poor in this World Cup. So they've definitely come on. And as Rio said, that Friday was their best performance of the campaign. So hopefully they are going in that right direction. But a lot of work left to do for them.
A lot of work indeed, mate. Sticking with you here, Ender, or Jade, do you want to chime in there?
Yeah, I just want to add this to Ender and you. Both of you guys are from the north, you know, regarding Argentina and the squad system and the setup. So in South Africa, we know we play in the north as well. We don't play in the south. But if
Yeah,
you're looking
Ben
at
Smith was
Argentina,
telling us all about that, wasn't he?
yeah, Ben Smith was, he was. But if you're looking at the way Argentina is set up, okay, they don't have a franchise that plays in the Northern Hemisphere competition. It's basically players that are spread out. Now, I know in South Africa, they do take player management into consideration. However, when it does come to the Six Nations, you do see guys like Bongi, Eban, Sia, them that they don't play. So the Sharks and the Stormers, they have about a 2 months holiday or a rest break. But Montoya, Gonzalez, all of those guys are still playing week in and week out for their club. Do you think that this season they felt the toll of too much rugby? Those guys came from heavy seasons, went right through, played about 36, 37 games, then came into an Argentinian camp, into a rugby championship, and then straight into a World Cup camp. And obviously, Checker he doesn't have the big squads that Africa has. I think these guys were running on empty coming into this World Cup. I think if they're going to go into the next World Cup cycle or 4 year cycle, they really need to plan as to what they're going to do, how they're going to get these players to rest, how they're going to get these players to be fresher and sharper, maybe not have all of these players in the rugby championship. Because there's a difference between the way the Boks do it and Argentina. The Boks have a bigger squad. They also can control them at franchise level, where they can say, okay, right, Bongi, Eban, etc., can only play one game a month or maybe 2 games a month. But Argentina, they don't have that control at their clubs. And I think that's the big problem with Argentina at the moment. Why we might need the Jaguars to come back into Super Rugby to help them.
That was that a question or you were making a statement?
Both.
Well, the rumor is that they have been invited back, but we don't know for when. So I guess the question is what kind of format that's going to be, because obviously Super Rugby has been through the whole process of. I think the Scarlets are about to concede another try. Yeah, they have. Okay, so it's a question. Super Rugby has been through the process of growing and then falling apart a couple of times now. So are they going to be in and then maybe a Australian team be kicked out? Is a Japanese team going to come in? Or is it going to be dependent on how Moana and Pacific are going, if they're able to keep going? So yeah, I think that obviously they've got the two teams in the Super Rugby Americas, but all the players from that are going into the Argentina 15, and I think there's only one of them are in the Puma senior side. But this Puma senior side is very old. I think their average age is something like 31. So they're going to have to freshen up this squad sooner rather than later. So it's a question of where those players are going to come from. If they don't think it's from Super Rugby Americas, I'm not sure where it's coming from. They're going to have to get the scouts out, and they're going to be a lot of air miles racked up scouting the new players.
Yeah, there is some rumor going around that Jaguares might be included again, but I don't think it will be next season, probably 2025, if I'm not mistaken, because I don't think Super Rugby has made any official plans. But obviously, these are rumors, and we don't know what is going to happen next season. To be exact. Moving on, gentlemen, to the tightly contested semi-final between the Springboks and obviously England. Springbok fans very confident going into this one. Social media, friends that I've been talking with over WhatsApp and WhatsApp groups as well. It wasn't as easy as people might have thought it would have been. But I mean, a lot of guys saying that maybe the Springboks had their they've had their bad game in a playoffs, and the New Zealand haven't had a bad game in the playoffs. And looking at from an English perspective, I mean, everyone had written England off, but they came out in this game and they used the very same tactics the Springboks have employed for the past 4 years, to be honest, and actually what got them to win Rugby World Cup 2019. Aerial skills were on point, put the Springboks under pressure, put the wingers under pressure. What are your thoughts from an England perspective in this semi-final?
Just one general point I want to make just before, excuse me, I touch on England. Again, they shouldn't have been there. The stadium was not full. And I thought the behaviour of the crowd booing the ref before and during the game was absolutely pathetic. I thought we talk about rugby values all the time. I thought, that was so disappointing. Like apparently there were a lot of French fans in that stadium. Like we all know that they purchased a lot of tickets, but booing a ref before a game, I think, is pretty pathetic from the fans. I just wanted to call that out. I don't think it was coming from what I've read from Springboks fans or anything like that. I think it was coming from French fans who were at the game. And for me, that's just pathetic behaviour. I thought that was awful. But yeah, that was my hashtag rugby values piece. But yeah, just on England, you could tell, how much they were obviously listening to the media. They knew they were written off. And you could tell, we've been talking for weeks about, after every decision that goes their way, after every little battle, they celebrate. But boy, do they take it to a next level yesterday. So you could just tell, for me, I almost until probably that 70th minute, I thought England were going to do a job. And for me, I thought they were going to do it because they were just seeing more up for it. For me, I just thought they were just so fired up for this game. And they executed, as they have been, their game plan so well. We don't like it. I don't think many people do, but it's winning rugby. It did. I would question, I know every team does it now. But, you replace your front row. Was it a mistake? Should they have gambled and left Marler and Cole on? And when their scrum was holding up, because we all know that the box bench, the bomb squad paid off. It didn't pay off against Ireland, but it certainly paid off against England, and their scrum was eviscerated. Ox and Che was absolutely outstanding. We've all seen the clips, and everyone put comments out there on Twitter about him. But yeah, just England. Yeah, they almost did it, but they shouldn't have been there. They really should not have been in the semi-final. I was disappointed to see them there. But at the same time, even from an Irish perspective, it's hard to do it, but you have to hand it to them. They put in a good performance. They played really well. They played with passion. And they knew everybody in the world had written them off, and they played with pride. So fair play to them. But yeah, I don't have any sympathy for them. But the Boks, I thought they were. It was. I know we might get onto it later, but this was a poor performance from them. I thought they played so much better against Ireland, and it just about paid off. I think the tactic of bringing on the tactic of bringing on the bomb squad. If that hadn't worked, I think they would have lost this game. And it was really sad to see Libbok replaced after 30 minutes. But should it? I know we spoke about this months ago, I think, and Vuyo pointed this out. But should have that been reversed? Should Pollard have started? And if the bomb squad tactic wasn't paying off and if the chase game, would it be better to have Libbok on the bench to come on and take the ball to the line and try a bit more with ball in hand? I don't know. But yeah, I think the Springboks got out of jail.
Springboks getting out of jail. You, as an Englishman, or as a Welshman living in England.
Steady on.
Got those twisted up for a second. Yes. Your view on England. Obviously, I know you have looked at this team throughout the past couple of seasons as well, throughout this World Cup, the chopping and changing of players. But last night, that was a different attitude from the English side, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it kind of was. Rain is the great equaliser. It shouldn't necessarily be, but the conditions definitely suited England more than South Africa. And always on TV, it always looks not as much raining as it is. That's not a very good sentence, but in real life, if you're in the stadium, I'm sure it was absolutely hosing it down. So I think that kind of helped. I think England getting on the scoreboard early and getting 12 points on early on kind of helps, because in those conditions, when you're chasing the game, it's very difficult. Yeah, so from England's point of view, I started tracking the stats of their wingers, Johnny May and Elliot Daly. And I've just been informed by an English rugby fan that tracking the attacking stats of wingers is pointless because they weren't being asked to attack, which I think is quite insightful, really. It tells the story that England didn't ask their wingers to attack. Elliot Daly had 0 carries, which is quite remarkable, really. And he dropped a lot of high balls, which we know he always has done. I guess if the Springboks, I don't know, if you would argue that the Boks' game is based off counterattacks, then you can't counterattack if the opposition never attack. And if England never attack, is quite remarkable. They seem to be quite happy to try and win games without scoring tries. I think they've failed to score a try in 3 of their last 8 games, which is crazy. So, yeah, I think, like I said, the conditions did help England and were an equaliser. With the whole Lebok Pollard thing, I think you've got to back the guy you've been backing all the time. And I think as soon as it started throwing it down with rain, I think Razzie probably thought, probably need to make the change. So you can convince yourself, and if you're Lebok, you've got no choice. You've got to convince yourself that it was just the game panned out in a way that didn't suit your skill set, and there was a guy with a different skill set on the bench, and it was the right thing to do. So that's kind of how I would choose to see it. I don't think Lebok was a car crash, but I think it was pretty clear from about 20 minutes that the game needed Pollard. And fair play to him. So I think you've got to credit the coaches of South Africa really in the end for making a change that was needed.
Ah, fair enough. Those are the views of Hugh, all the way from England. Vuyo, Lebok, 30 minutes. We've seen this before, haven't we? Bongi Monambi against Australia. I think it was a couple of years back. He had a couple of bad throws and he was substituted, I think, 29 minutes into the game, or it might have been earlier as well in the first half. We've seen these tactics from the Springboks before. It's nothing new, but this was unexpected in a semi-final. Hugh speaks about the weather conditions. South African fans speak about the psyche or mental aspect this might have or impact this might have on Mani Libok. Your thoughts? I mean, you're a coach. You've played before at the highest level. What do you think of the decision, and also how does a player feel in that situation?
Yeah, I'll come back to your question a little bit later, Scoop. But the biggest thing here that we have is England came out with the tactic. It's almost a similar tactic to what France was trying, but France was not executing it well, whereas England yesterday executed it well with the help of the weather, of course, and didn't help that South Africa made a lot of handling errors in terms of they didn't get a lot of those returns in terms of high balls. A couple of grubbers went through that were knocked on or fumbled. So it was a little bit tough for the Springboks to settle down. I guess the weather played a massive factor, but we were sitting with a mate and we were discussing that. Look, the score might be a little bit big at 15-6, but you just get a 7-pointer and you get a 3-pointer, you're done. And that's exactly what happened, especially we're talking about this exactly when Pollard asked for the scrum. And if you remember, when they took the scrum, they got a penalty. He didn't kick it out. They managed to scramble the defense and get another scrum penalty, another scrum on the halfway, and that's when they got a penalty. So it was one of those days where you knew that the Springboks were not firing. They were not firing. I mean, how many balls lost in contact? I mean, I think that's probably the tactic where Rusty said anyone makes a mistake in the second half, they're coming off, and which is what we saw from Reinach, what we saw from Kitshoff. Not so for Malherbe, but I think there was one more player that also came off because of a mistake. So it was Willemse. So it's almost like one of those days where you felt this one was the toughest they've had to make decisions on in terms of who to pull out, when. For Libok, guys, unfortunately, I'm not. At this point, I'm not sorry for the for the substitution. I'm more than happy for the substitution. If you look at Lebok was not taken off because he was having a bad game. Never. He was taken off because, guys, if you get a penalty on your and you kick it onto the other 10-meter for a fly half, that is a big miss. South Africa strives on having lineouts in the opposition 22. They strive on having lineouts in dangerous areas so that they put the opposition under pressure. And Libok was just not getting it. He was poor in his exits. He's kicking. I mean, there was one cross kick he kicked with his left foot. It literally went from exactly on the offside line. And I think we tried to get it. I think Cheslin tried to get it, but I think one of the English guys ended up knocking it on. So for me, it was not a matter of why was it taken off. It was a matter of he was just not doing his basics. I'm not saying he had a bad game. I'm not saying he had a bad game. I'm not saying that he felt out of place. I'm just saying the basics of a flyer is simple. If you get a penalty, kick for touch, dude, you have to give us at least 40 to 50 meters. That's only thing we ask for as a Springbok forwards, because we want to get in a good position. And Lipoque was just not doing it. So for me, I think it was a right call. And after this performance, unfortunately, I do not see him wearing the Springbok jersey in this World Cup again. I know it's harsh. But I suspect next week Pollard will start and we'll go to probably go to a 6-2 split or a 7-0 split. And if we go to a 6-2 split, then definitely Lipoque is not in that mix. Probably someone like Vili will probably be on the bench on the 6-2. And also, probably Kobus will probably be on the bench and Faf will probably start, because Faf came on and he controlled things quite well. Yeah, so it's a couple of things. I think just the weather played a massive factor yesterday, and because the Springboks were so relaxed going into this game, of all the social media, all the things about they should win this one easy. They were so relaxed, and I think they got a shock of their lives when they started realizing that, okay, now England is here to play.
Yeah, true. Fair enough. Jade, I mean, yeah, I think it's the same question that I posed to Vuyo. But also, in addition to that, obviously the circus that continued or transpired on social media with Rassie Erasmus, and obviously people thinking that Rassie Erasmus being on social media takes pressure away from players. I mean, if you're a player, the pressure is pressure. I don't care whether Rassie Erasmus is taking the pressure or the players are taking the pressure. Pressure is pressure, and it's a semi-final game. Whether Rassie is, being misogynistic on social media or not, regardless. But I mean, your thoughts regarding the particular game, tactics from England, tactics from the Springbok. Where do you see loopholes leading into this final next weekend?
Yeah, Scoop. I stay in Bloemfontein, bro. And you know, Rassie Erasmus has God status in Bloemfontein. And you're asking me a question where I should criticize Rassie Erasmus. I still have to go to work this week, brother. But yeah. Look, I know his tactics. Rassie's a throw. His personality is a throw. He tries to get under you. Just his social media and what he's saying on social media. Obviously, he does have an agenda. He does, he has a specific message he wants to get out there, and he does it. He's been doing it for years now, so he's not going to stop. The Ben Smith issue with Rassie Erasmus just been a joke. I think everybody realized that Ben Smith is not real. He's just a hoax, But yeah, in terms of the Boxers' tactics, if I can talk of that, I agree with Vuyo. I know taking the Bok off at the right time yesterday. Pollard gave them that stability. I don't think with the Bok on the field yesterday, they would have won the game. Not because of the way he was playing, but just that Pollard has this calmness about it. He's an experienced player. He's won a World Cup before. As much as I felt for the Bok being subbed, I also felt that there was a few guys also. They could have went off after 30 minutes. Kobus Reinach was one. I felt that they could have easily brought Faf on earlier. And you saw with Willemse making mistakes. They pulled him, Sia got pulled, Evan got pulled, Dwayne got pulled early. So it is what it is. There's no room for error in the World Cup semi-final, and Rassie Erasmus backs his full 23. He knows they're going to do a job. So this weekend, I think he's going to go 6-2. I don't think he'll go 7-1. I think he'll go 6-2, depending on the conditions. I do see there is rain forecasted, so it wouldn't surprise me if both teams go 6-2, right? But I think he's going to go 6-2. In terms of the tactics, in terms of the attitude before the game, I don't think it was an attitude. I don't think you ever have to get a Bok team up to beat England. I think the weather conditions played a big role in the game. The way South Africa has progressed in this four-year cycle, they're no longer just that bash team, pick up big forwards, bash you, and kicking the aerial skills. They can play rugby. You stated it in a thread you put on a few days ago that South Africa are actually good at playing rugby. And they have outside backs that can run. They have a good attacking flair. They've got a 9 that's good that can run. So they are a good team. I just think the weather conditions, was terrible on the day. England played the conditions better. The tactics worked. They put on scoreboard pressure. The Boks got out of jail, but they won the semi-final and they're in the final next week. Another key aspect that I want to put on, and I just want to say, there's a lot of talk from the Pommies regarding Ben O'Keefe. I just feel that there's always going to be talk regarding a referee if you're on the losing end, the same like we said with Checker. I think the last scrum penalty, Ben O'Keefe, it was right. I think most of his penalties was right. You could argue and state that maybe Dion Fourie was yelled by Willie Paulo or that try, but the Boks had never had a rubber green a lot of the time, and yeah, it's by time they got their luck and their decisions going their way.
Fair enough. Not you go, Jade. We've got a question from Mpumelelo here. He's asking us to have a look at obviously Kitsoff and Franz Malherbe, Franz Malherbe during this World Cup in terms of not dominating a lot of scrums. And then also take a look at, what are your thoughts on Sia's form? And yeah, next week, would the Springboks start Dwayne or Jasper? So yeah, Jade, that's for you or Vuyo actually.
You know what? I'll take the one on the Boks back because I just put a tweet out on it. When the Boks played against Tonga, I think it was Ox that started and Frans Malherbe was the starting tight head. The Boks didn't get a lot of ascendancy in the scrum. Tonga yelled their own at scrum time. And I think the Boks got one scrum penalty maybe in that game, and they also conceded a scrum penalty on their own ball in that game. So Oxenche is arguably the best loose head currently at this World Cup, maybe in the game, in terms of a scrummager as well. But if you look at who he scrums against, and it plays a big role, majority of the tight heads in the world are tall guys. They are tall guys. You're looking at your tight heads, look at Lomax, Antonio, even Danko is not that tall. But if you're looking at most of the tight heads, they're taller guys, big in structure. And Oxenche has this technique and this ability to just get under you and pop you. And that has been his party trick, since Ox came on the scene. He's been brilliant at that. Against Fletcher Newell the weekend, we'll see two short tight end and loose going against each other if Ox goes on the bench against Fletcher Newell from the Allblacks. So you'll see another skill from Ox maybe this weekend. But for me, I still believe when they scrummed against Bentao Mafuna with Tonga, he didn't get that ascendancy because Ben is a little bit taller. Ben is not that tall, so he couldn't really get under you. So I wouldn't change Kitsoff and Frans Malherbe and Bongi. I'll keep that. Ox is a power play from the bench. He has this aura about him now. I think the last prop that had this, I don't know if you go back to 2007, maybe Scoop, was it Andy Sheridan from England? He had this aura about him, just destroyed everybody at scrum time. Now Ox has this now, We know you got to play Ox. New Zealand's got to see how am I going to counter Ox, because if I get 5 scrums against Ox, it could be 5 penalties. So that's really the mental game New Zealand has this weekend is playing Ox. Now, when are they going to bring on Ox as well? So we can't just play our game. We can't just focus on Ox. Kitsoff was a very good scrummager as well. So I'll start with Kitsoff. I'll start with Frans Malherbe. I'll leave Ox on the bench, and I'll keep that as my power play. Ox and Kwagga Smith has been the Boks' power plays at this World Cup. Kwagga has been tremendous. There's no way I'm dropping Siya Kolisi for Kwagga. However, when Kwagga gets on that field, he's been brilliant. And from an All Black perspective, I would rather play against Jasper Visser than Dwayne Vermeulen, because Dwayne Vermeulen has done it in the big game. He's won a World Cup, and he's been man of a match in the World Cup final. So I would never ever write Dwayne Vermeulen off. So if you ask me between the two from an All Black perspective, I'd rather play against Jasper than Dwayne, because for me, Dwayne has won it all.
Fair enough. Vuyo, you want to jump in on the other question as well? Dwayne or Jasper, who do you start? And Sia's performance so far in this World Cup?
I think, yeah. So Jade pretty much laid it out thick. I don't think suggest I will be wearing a green jersey this coming weekend, unless we go for a 7-on split. I see definitely Dwayne starting again. Dwayne, that's why they went with Dwayne in the quarterfinals. I think Dwayne started, I think, against Romania or something, and he started like with the small games. He was always in the benches. He was always in the bench leading up to the quarterfinals. And he started quarterfinals, started semi-final. I think that was a plan to save the big bugger, to save the old man. So now that we're reaching crunch time, I think that will definitely put him on starting on that at 8. I don't see Jasper coming back. Sia, look, I think a lot of people don't see what Sia does a lot of the field. I think a lot of people probably watching other things. They want to see fancy Sia running with the ball, but they forget the amount of influence he has in the game in terms of tackles, in terms of cleaning, in terms of just being to the right time. So I don't even think that is a big call to make. I think Sia obviously this is what he does. This is what he does. We don't see him, and then all of a sudden he'll have 2 or 3 games. Very good game, and we'll look back and say, "Wow, we actually noticed how Sia has been part of the mix." So yeah, it's you get those. He's not an outright fetcher. He's not an outright fetcher. We all know that, and that's why Dion for really yesterday replaced him, because we needed to put a lot more pressure in the English breakdown, and that's exactly what the coaches made the call, and that's why Sia was pulled off. Otherwise, if the game was pretty much easy, I think Sia probably would have been pushed on a little bit longer, and probably they would have subbed Bongi so that Dion gets a run at hooker in case of the final. But because we needed someone at breakdown just to put a little bit more pressure for England breakdown, that's why I made the substitution. And obviously Kwaha as well. That's why Kwaha is so influential in games, because we know in tackles he rips the ball in funny situations. He just gets in the head and get the ball. So that's why they made those 2 changes to disrupt the English breakdown. On Ox and Kitsoff, I think Kitsoff obviously will definitely start. I think they will start next week. As Zaid said, the moment they've seen now with Ox is our impact player. He's our impact player, and he's pretty much on top of it now. But one thing for me, if they haven't picked up on Ox, as soon as there's an engage, he always, if you notice, his feet, they always go left. They don't go forward. As soon as on the set, they don't go left, they don't go forward. And as soon as that, you put the ball in, is literally hitting your neck and is coming in between your neck and your shoulder. And that's when you feel the pressure. So a lot of refs haven't picked it up, but it's a very good scrummaging technique. People argue it's scrumming stew, but I think it's actually smart, because no one has picked it up at the moment.
No, fair enough. He is
Is that
scrumming
Koch?
skew.
Sorry, is that Koch? Is definitely scrumming skew.
No, not Koch. What's his name? Ox.
Koch is definitely scrumming skew. Please continue.
Okay, Kofi, you're gonna jump in now. Just now, Bangeliza has also a question regarding Bongi's line-out throwing. I think I can jump into that one. I think the weather conditions were quite terrible. We also saw Jamie George also have a blunder. I think he threw the ball like straight over his head. Yeah, so I think the conditions were quite horrible last night. It was, I don't think Bongi, yeah, he did have a few cough ups, but I mean, I think it was due to the pressure that England had put on the Springboks. I think they analyzed the Springbok lineouts quite well. I mean, Boks struggled with what the mauling aspect was nullified last night by England. Breakdown, the English were pretty solid as well. I mean, they got good clean ball, hence those aerial balls were also quite effective. Yeah, so Vuyo and Hugh, I'm gonna let you guys jump in just now, but I want to let Kofi jump in, and then Hugh, and then Vuyo after that. Black Coffee, the floor is yours.
I missed some of your chat there. I didn't quite catch it.
Oh no,
Can you
no,
just summarize it for a second, please?
no. I was talking about the line-out throws that Manga was asking. He asked us
Oh, okay.
throwing, but
So
I
what
want
do you want me to chime on? Just
chime
there.
in on what you thought about the Springbok final. and the All Blacks.
First of all, like, there's no hard feelings when it comes to this, and I absolutely understand what everyone is saying about money. But I, as a coach, would have probably done the same thing. I think I would have done it with Quibus as well. So you have to have a reserve scrummy going into the final, and I think you have to have a reserve utility. If Pollard comes off, are you going to back Damien to kick the long ranges? Are you going to back Faf potentially to kick the long ranges like he did against Ireland? Are you going to back Colby to kick either short or long? So I think you have to have Mani there also. So I don't know if you're going to go 5-3. I think it'll probably be 6-2, but I think Mani is obviously the guy that can also play at 15. We've seen that happen. So I agree with most of the guys' sentiments there. I think the Springboks were, from a South African perspective in the second half, dominant in the scrum. From a neutral perspective, I think you have to look at how Vincent Koch is scrummaging at the moment. And I think that scrum at this point in time is probably being held up by Ox. And I think we all know that now. I start Ox and I play him 80 minutes against the All Blacks, if I'm being honest with you. You don't want to be in a situation where Frans Malherbe is overextending. Same too with Spicy Plum. I think Ox is the best scrummager. In the key facets of this game, Ox can play 80 minutes and he can basically put you ahead of the 8 ball before you go behind. If it's wet, like Jade mentions, it's going to be a scrummaging game. The ball's going to be wet a lot of the times. Expect a lot of knock-ons. Expect a lot of inaccuracies. You're going to have a very strong set piece. It's going to be so difficult for Bongi to go 80 minutes again. So difficult. And I think they'll target him. I think they'll target him in his carry. I think they'll target him especially in the line-out, because playing playoff rugby 80 minutes, 80 minutes, 80 minutes, 75 minutes, 80 minutes, 80 minutes is extremely difficult. But that's the value that you have in Dion Fourie, you know. I picked him in one of the WhatsApp groups as saying, like, probably when he does come on, he'll probably come on in the flanks. This was 2 weeks ago. And Bob's your uncle, that's what happened. So I think not having a proper second choice hooker might be something that the Springboks will feel is edgy. But I do think that, look, I've seen the script before. You win by 1 point in the quarters. You win by 1 point in the semis. The final comes. You get your game up. You win by 20. It's very possible. I see it becoming one of those things. But it's the final that we all wanted to see, I think. Especially us Southern Hemisphere boys. It's the final that we all wanted to see. It's going to be a little bit of rugby played by the New Zealanders and stop nonsense by the Springboks. And I think I've said time and time again that rugby is now a defensive game. You can't go into a big tournament, rugby championship, Six Nations, World Cup, not having a proper defensive game plan. And I thought England did well for 71 minutes. And then their game plan kind of went to a dog show, especially when their scrum started wielding to the pressure that the Springboks were putting them under. So I thought their game plan worked to a T. I mean, when you look at, I've only watched the game once, and it was the time where I watched it with, I think, 200 or 300 other people. When Owen Farrell kicked that drop goal, it looked dead and buried. I mean, his face was smug, you know. And to pull it out the fire, that was wonderful from the Springboks. I'll be honest, but you still see some glaring deficiencies in the opportunity cost. In if Mani plays and if Pollard plays, Pollard's running game, I'm not sure. His kicking game is A1, but his running game, I'm not 100% sure. Mani, the opposite is true. So if Mani's running game isn't on and the game isn't built to run, his kicking game is nullified to a large extent. Even his kicks out of hand when getting a lot of distance. So, yeah, it's six in one, half a dozen in the other. But I just have this sneaky suspicion that you win by one in another, and then you just pull away, which is effectively what the Springboks do it at times like this. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that the Springboks over the last two games, I believe, were severely outplayed. And it takes a real championship team to get to the level where they've gotten to, knowing full well that in the carry against Ireland, in the set piece, in a lot of like these exchanges, they were dominated. Sorry, against France, excuse me, they were dominated. Against England, in terms of the tactics, in terms of how they played, the execution of how they played, England outplayed them. So it'll be very interesting to see if they raise the game in the next 7 days, how the All Blacks will respond to the South African onslaught. But my biggest takeaway from that whole game is you play Ox 80 minutes.
Play Ox 80 minutes. Hugh, you wanted to jump in and then Vio after that?
I just wanted to add just on the line-out discussion about how perhaps not well it went. I just wanted to give the stats that England and South Africa both stole 2 line-outs each. England's lost 3 line-outs, South Africa lost 4. But in terms of percentage, I think the Springboks had 19 line-outs, so their line-out completion was actually better than England's.
Solid work there with Mr. Numbers. Vuyo?
No, it was just a matter of just reiterating what you said. I think the weather played a massive factor, on the line-out throws. But I also think that Bongi was a little bit nervous at times. You could see it in the face that he was a bit worried because in England we're actually competing quite well. So I think that also plays a factor. And I mean the locks didn't help him by making readable calls. I think so, but that goes credit to England in terms of how they played that situation. And I think that's why, if you notice, South Africa started going to the back a lot more because they really saw that, okay, if we go to the back, we can get our ball, but then obviously that becomes a little bit of an issue with in terms of the weather and how straight the ball can go. I mean, at the back. So, I mean, I was very surprised when they played the move with RNC coming in the lineup for. So it was very surprising, but they actually ended up doing it. But with Bongi, I think Bongi, we don't have to worry about his lineup throws. I think obviously New Zealand will come with the tactic of reading the same things, reading the lineups and see what they try to do. But I think we're still okay.
We are still okay. Okay, Ender, you've been awfully quiet. Now is the most important part of this pod. Team selection going into the final and obviously making predictions for this particular final. Who do you think the Springboks, or first of all, do the Springboks go 6-2? Do the Springboks go 7-1? Do the Springboks go 5-3? Going into this final, and obviously, where do you think they'll make changes, and where do you think the All Blacks will make changes regarding this particular final? This is a question for everyone in the panel. We'll basically start with Ender, then move on to Vuyo after that, and I think Jade I would want you to touch in on the All Blacks perspective, and then obviously look into the South African side later on. Ender, your thoughts going into this final? Changes? Who would you make? Where would you make changes, if there are any? And how do you see the game coming? Who do you see winning actually as victors next week Saturday?
Well, there might be one enforced change. I'm sure we've all seen the accusation made about Bongi by Tom Curry. Obviously, we've no idea if there's any truth to it, but if there is, and he does get a ban for a slur, that puts an awful lot of pressure, and that's obviously going to force a change at hooker. And I really think South Africa are vulnerable then. But hopefully, like that, it's not true, and it's nothing to do, like it's nothing in it and all that. For the sake of the World Cup final. But yeah, with that, we should watch that space for sure. So that could be that could play a massive factor on this game. Like, who is the backup after Dion Free, or is there one? Do they have any?
Marco van
Staden.
Both flankers,
both flankers, yeah. So for me, that's a massive risk there to see what happens. But I'd be surprised. Yeah, I think Vuyo's touched on it, and I think I did. I think I think Pollard starts. It's going to be tough on Manny, but I think it's a World Cup final. You have to make your kicks. He's done it in the past. He's got a better kicking percentage, so he has to go with Pollard. And I personally think he might go 5-3 again on the bench and put Liabok on the bench, because I think he can be that difference maker if he comes on and they are chasing a game. I know a lot of people probably think it's going to be a 6-2, but I'd be surprised if it wasn't 5-3. But I don't see many other changes outside of that. I think like your wingers, your centers, your front row, they were under pressure, but I think they'll be fine. I again, like the guys were saying with Bongi, it was the weather, especially when you look at Jamie George's throws as well. So I think it's pretty much going to be the same side apart from Pollard. And it'll be really interesting to see what happens on the bench. But yeah, that'll be it. I think it's going to be fascinating just to see. But I don't think there'll be like there were no changes for the game yesterday. So I wouldn't be surprised if he just went with the same tactics again and kept the same team. I'd be surprised, especially with Pollard not starting, but he could go the exact same again and keep that momentum going.
Fair enough. And who do you see as winners? Yeah, just now, Kofi.
Sure.
Who's your winner, Ender?
Oh, there are a lot of South African listeners on right now. I think the All Blacks they're really building. I'm going to say All Blacks by 5, but it's going to be a cracker of a game. It's the World Cup probably that we've asked for. I think I'm surprised there isn't much. Or maybe I'm not. For me, I can't believe there have been more comments about the farce that was the semi-finals and that we had 2 teams that shouldn't have been there. But thankfully, this final will hopefully make up for it, and hopefully it's a bloody sellout. So I think it's been pretty crazy that these games haven't been sold out, or they have been, and people haven't showed up. Which I think the All Blacks just about by 5 points.
Fair enough, Kofi.
Sorry, Mike. I just wanted to ask a question leading from or based on the overall question you've asked. You asked about tactics and whether they. So you asked about team selection and who plays. My question is built on knowing that you're playing against the All Blacks. You've played the All Blacks. You're playing against the All Blacks. You played them a week before the World Cup started. Of course, there were different factors.
Mm-hmm.
Do the tactics that you employ in this game by starting Pollard? Are you employing tactics to nullify the opposition, or are you employing tactics to present a dominant game plan from your end? That's the question that I'm asking, based on, do we make changes, or do we keep a 6-2 split, or how do we move the game forward in terms of trying to win the World Cup final? I don't know if that question makes sense.
No, I hear you. I hear your question. Oh, I'll leave that for Jade while I think, actually. Jade, are you
me, boss?
Oh, Vuyo.
Yeah. Why is it going far? Look, to start on Ender, the team will change. It will be either 6-2 split or 7-1 split. Sources tell me inside the camp that that's the plan for now. All right. I see.
I take it.
I agree with you.
I TK Vuyo there.
No, around now, point one from P, so it's pretty much easy. No, so what's happening is Pollard will probably start. Faf will probably start. Kobus will be on the bench, and I'm at this point, I'm still saying Willie. Unfortunately for Money, he's not in my 6-2 split. Probably Willie. They definitely not going with 5. That is 99 or let's say 95%. Not a 5-3 split. They'll go 6-2. And who will come on the bench is probably going to be Eskom, which is what's Eskom's name, Vince? Marco van Staden. So he'll come in on the 6-2, just to obviously share the load between, if there needs to be a substitution for the hooker, if Bongi doesn't play. And if Bongi doesn't play, then obviously they'll bring in probably someone like Jasper or even Marvin Ori for the lineup. Then, if I look at New Zealand, unfortunately, I don't think New Zealand are going to make changes. I'm only suspecting one change from New Zealand. I'm only suspecting Whitelock going back to the bench and Scott Barrett coming back in. That's the only change that I'm seeing at the moment. Otherwise, when I look, and also the question will be 16 jersey. Would it go to Dan Coles or Takiavo? That's going to be another question. But if New Zealand, I suspect New Zealand most probably might even go to 16 as well. And that's basically it on the selection side. Look, the tactics that New Zealand, South Africa went with. So to answer Coffee's question, the tactics that South Africa went with in the semi-final, the tactics that South Africa went into the game before the World Cup, they've changed. They will change unless something comes in the week and they decide otherwise. But the tactics that they're going to the final will change. They actually employed some of those tactics within the semi-final, but they probably will change based on obviously the opposition and what they've seen, what England has given them to counter. And absolutely 100%, I'm sure that this selection will change with South Africa. I do not see Manili Bok based on the fact that when the pressure came, he didn't handle it quite well. And I don't think they can have that luxury against a team like New Zealand.
Hugh?
Is the question, what changes do I expect to be made?
The question is, looking at the teams going into this final, what selection changes do you think the Springboks will make or the All Blacks will make going into the final? And obviously the prediction for who are the victors or who wins that World Cup final next week.
Well, I'll start with the prediction. I've been backing the All Blacks to win the title since before the championship started, so I'm not going to change that. Sorry, guys. In terms of changes, I wouldn't expect many changes for the All Blacks. The one change that I would make if I was in charge is I would bring Lester Fainga'anuku in over Talea, but I don't think Talea has been that bad enough that I would be disbelieving that he kept his place in the team. Obviously, Fozzie thinks he's there for a reason, so I'm not going to die on that hill. For South Africa, for me, with the bench, Pollard, if Pollard starts, he plays the full 80. There's no point having Pollard starting and Lebok on the bench for me, because the reason you'd bring Lebok on would be to, run the ball more and play more attacking. And when was the last time you saw anyone chase the All Blacks down by throwing the ball around? That's what the All Blacks want you to do, because that's what they feed off. That's in their DNA. So if Pollard starts, he plays the full 80. Because of the combinations, if Pollard starts, that also means LaRue starts for me. And apart from that, I think maybe Faf back in at 9. And then I agree with what everybody else has said. I think a 6-2 or a 7-1 split.
100%. Jade, your views regarding this particular question?
Yeah, I don't think Kofi's question got answered. I think Kofi was asking. I think Kofi asked if the box would change the game plan, and try and take the game to New Zealand the weekend, then rather expecting and waiting for what New Zealand shows them. They have to take the game to New Zealand because that's why they gave New Zealand a hiding at Twickenham. They took the game to New Zealand. At Mount Smart, they allowed New Zealand to run at them and they got the hiding. So they are going to take the game to New Zealand. They have to counter the first 20 minutes. Like I said, New Zealand haven't conceded a try this World Cup in first 20. They have to get a fast start. And also, guys, let's be honest. The Boks have had 2 tough games now. So how much do they have in the tank? Let's honestly, how much does Bongi have in the tank? How much does, guys that just played, Damien de Allende, Jesse Kriel, how much do they have in the tank? So the Boks want to get out there, get out of the blocks fast, get the game, make New Zealand chase this game. And if New Zealand chases the game, that's where the errors comes in. That's where they try to overplay. The panic starts to get in. The Boks is definitely going to come out of the blocks fast in this game. That is their plan. In terms of changes, I really think, and I agree with you, I think Billy LaRue starts this one at fullback, and I think Pollard starts with a 6-2 split. I got this feeling that John Klein will come in on the bench. I got this feeling John Klein will come in on the bench because we do have Fourie and Kwaku or similar players. And I think the other guy would be on the bench. Faf would also start, but Kobus would be on the bench with Damien Willemse. I don't think Mani makes the 23, unfortunately. The reason I went with Jean Klein instead of Marco van Staren is because of Dion Fourie is there. They can play 6, Kwaga can play 6, and you're looking at Peter Steff to play the whole game, basically. He's the marathon man. So that's the box. In terms of the All Blacks, guys, surprisingly, I got a feeling with the rain in France, with all of the rain that's happening in that side of the world, I got a feeling that Fossey and Schmidt and Ryan will go 6-2. I got a feeling they'll go 6-2. I got a feeling Damien McKenzie misses out on this one from the bench. The starting lineup would be Brody would start Sam Whitelock on the bench. Dane Coles comes in for Samasoni Tokiao. I do see Fletcher Newell and Tamaki Williams keeping their spot because, like I mentioned, those two guys they've been in championship rounds for the Crusaders, so they have that experience in championship rounds how to win trophies. Might not be a World Cup. And I see a guy like Ethan Blackadder coming on the bench for the 6-2 split. Predictions. I'm not going to make a prediction now. I can't because I don't know which way it's going to go. I hope the All Blacks win because I do support them. But if the Boks win, I wouldn't be too upset because this is arguably one of the greatest Springbok teams we've ever seen. And what a bunch of guys, with Sia and this whole team has just been brilliant to this country. I can't make a prediction scoop. I don't know which way it's going to go. I have to look at the 15, but like I said, I hope, I support the All Blacks. I hope the All Blacks win, but if the Boks win, it's not a train smash.
Oh, heavy. I see Vuyo's got the guns out. Jade, take cover. Vuyo.
He knows I'm coming for him. No, I just think, just talking about the bench issue. I honestly think I don't see why they would start Vili. I'm definitely don't see that. I see definitely Willemse, but you know what would be surprising in this whole mix? If they go 6-2 split and they go arm on the bench, that would be a massive surprise for all of us because we haven't actually spoke about it, we haven't thought about it. That's one thing I wanted to make a comment on, and everything is good.
Kofi.
No guns. Vuyo, no guns. I don't need to take cover. No guns, Vuyo. Okay.
I think Kofi has disappeared because I actually wanted to hear what his thoughts are regarding this. But going back to his particular question before we say goodbye, I think, as Jade said, it's very important that the Springboks go hard at the All Blacks from the first minute. A similar situation that transpired at Twickenham. But if the Springboks hang back a bit and allow New Zealand into the game, the confidence of the All Blacks is unmatched. These two teams have played each other so many times. Mount Smart, New Zealand were winners. You go to Twickenham, Springboks were winners convincingly. Now it's the third game. It's the third time these teams are meeting each other. So if these two teams meet 3 times, 2 out of 3 will definitely go to the All Blacks, just from a stats perspective. And obviously, seeing how these teams have gone at it in this past cycle, that's just the stats perspective. You can correct me here if I'm wrong. Maybe you might check this out when you do your research this week. Kofi, jump in there.
I would like to propose a Friday night show where guys can chat about who they think they'll win. That's just on the side. There are 3 points of weakness for the All Blacks that I saw on Saturday's game. On Friday's game and a few games before that as well. I think 2 of them were well spoken of. I think Jade spoke about the inside-out defense using the touchline. They've got an extremely passive defensive line. So you'll always make meters on the All Blacks. Each team, even Argentina, even though they only scored 6 points in the whole game, they went through multiple phases, and then they started kicking the ball in the 22 for some reason. Carreras, their fullback Malia, if I'm not mistaken, they started kicking the ball in around the 10-meter 22 after making meters, which is something that was bewildering to me. But that passive line speed, I think, I'm not sure how comfortable they would be, excuse me, against the South Africans. The second thing that was well spoken of, excuse me, was I'll come back to it. The one point that wasn't well spoken of, I think, at the time was the execution of the high ball receipt, especially on the left edge. And this is where probably a guy like Leicester, correct me if I'm wrong, whether Leicester or Telea are better on the high ball, but Telea wasn't good at all under the high ball. And I think it's going to be an area where the Springboks focus on, especially if you look at the games where they played against France and they played against Ireland, where they scored their tries effectively off turnover ball. The ball was kicked. It was inaccurately collected by the opposition. And 2 phases, 3 phases later, sometimes a phase later, they would score. Ireland or France would score. And that's what the Springboks rely on. And I think that is a massive factor when it comes to a World Cup final. So I think the player that is the best under the high ball, especially on that left wing, is the one that's going to play the game on Saturday, the final. I do think that, like the guys have mentioned, the guy that's going to be the best exponent of kicking that high ball is going to be Pollard. And in him playing, Willie also has to play. I think that's just the combination. I think Hugh mentioned that earlier, that the Boks like to play with. I'll be honest, in conditions like that, personally, I don't think Corbus has got the technique to execute and put the ball on a needle. I think a guy like Jaden Hendrickse, even though he hasn't played a lot of rugby, is better suited to that kind of game plan. But I don't know how much rugby he's played over the last 6-7 weeks in order to facilitate him coming into the team. Who do I think is going to win? Please wait until Friday night, guys.
It's Friday night, action night, right here on Rugby Scoop. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your input. Thank you, Enda. Thank you, Vuyo, Hugh, Kofi. Welcome back. Thank you, Jade. It's going to be a fascinating week. Obviously, we can listen to the pressers from this past weekend, and definitely from Monday onwards, it's going to be on. It's going to be heated. It's going to be very, very epic. Great final to look ahead. Maybe we can also have a short snippet on Friday just to see once the teams have been mentioned, we can probably have a proper look at what tactics will be employed for the Saturday game. Guys, thank you for listening, and see you guys next week Sunday after the final. Have a good Sunday. Cheers.
Thanks, gents.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, fellas. Cheers.